folks, Nick with Sweetwater here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a very quick look at Josh Scott's least favorite piece of guitar playing vernacular, how to tighten up your low end. An awful lot has been said, written, posted, blogged, and filmed on this subject, and understandably so. After all, it's an important one. Darned important, in fact, in all forms of rock, be it hard, soft, metal, whatever. It can also be a little bit confusing at first, as the way to do it can seem a little counterintuitive too. I say this because in order to tighten up your guitar's low end, you invariably have to remove some. Yes, my friend, in the glorious world of overdriven and distorted guitar, you don't add more bass to get that glorious low-end note articulation and heavy chugging sound you lust for. You actually take some away. Yup, you roll it off. You literally bench those undesirable flubby frequencies via a low-cut filter, thus removing them from the playing field. And that's one reason why overdrive pedals like the legendary Ibanez Tubescreamer and the often overlooked Boss SD1 are commonly used to front-end high-gain amps, because they tighten up your guitar's low end by rolling said low end off. To prove my point, first I'm going to do this. I'm going to change guitars via digital magic. Change done. Here's channel 2 of the Blackstar St. James 50-watt 6L6 tube head I'm using. And here's the same exact riff again, well, as close as I can get to playing it the same again anyway, but this time with the amp's gain rolled back a hair and with a TS9 Tubescreamer kicked in for good measure. Hear what I mean? Now here's the exact same thing, but this time with the Boss SD1 kicked in instead. Here once again is the amp by itself. And now here's the same riff again, same deal, SD1 kicked in with the amp's gain control backed off an hour or so. And just so you know, in both cases I had the pedal's drive control set really low, the pedal's volume control set really high, and the tone control set according to taste, or in my case, distinct lack thereof. Could you hear what I mean? I certainly could, and what's more, I could feel it too. Both pedals rolled off the low end nicely while boosting the mids, and the result was the tight low end I was looking for. Like I said, it's kind of counterintuitive at first, but it makes sense. To get the low end fatter, get rid of some. So if I wanted to make this video really short, I could just say, go get yourself a Tubescreamer or an SD1, and then start tweaking. After all, the Tubescreamer's user list is super impressive. It goes from Stevie Ray Vaughan to Kirk Hammett, John Mayer to Gary Holt of Exodus, and Noel Gallagher of Oasis to Ola England. And the latter Swede definitely knows a thing or three about chugging. And that's me just naming 6 of a vast and impressive list. That's why I recently did a video entitled, Why the Tubescreamer Rules. After all, its user list is quite literally a who's who of guitar playing, from blues to pop, indie to rock to metal, and all points in between. In fact, there's a link to said video below. And the same is true of the Boss SD1 as well. The list goes from Kurt Cobain to Steve Vai, Mark Knopfler to Zakk Wylde, and The Edge to John 5. Plus, Jimmy Page is in there too, and so is Josh Homme. Once again, a pretty darned impressive list of famous users. But wait, there's still a lot more to consider and discuss, so let's not take the easy, want to tighten your low end up, then get a Tubescreamer, thank you, good night route, as tempting as it may be. First though, let me quickly explain what a low-cut filter is and what it does. Here goes. A low-cut filter is also known as a high-pass filter because, well, it cuts lows while allowing higher frequencies to pass. Makes sense, right? Said filter is set at a certain low-end frequency, typically somewhere between 20 and 150 Hz. Let's check out a diagram, shall we? This is often known as the roll-off or cut-off frequency, and said frequency is determined by the 3 dB down point, not the frequency where the roll-off or cut starts. This done, all frequencies above it are allowed to pass, while all those below it are cut off or attenuated. Furthermore, this filter usually has a slope, which means the lower the frequency is, the more it is attenuated or reduced. Some filter slopes are steep, others a little more gentle. Hopefully that made sense. And just so you know, something called a high-cut or low-pass filter is often employed to do the exact same thing at the other end of the frequency spectrum, namely cut highs over a certain frequency, while allowing those lower to pass. Anyway, by removing the lows before they hit a distorted amp definitely tightens things up, as we've already heard. The thing to always remember is this, my friend. The guitar is essentially a mid-range instrument. Even when dealing with drop tunings, baritone, 7-string and even 8-string axes, it's a mid-range instrument. The low end of the rock and metal frequency spectrum is covered by the bass and drums in a band situation, and also a recording situation for that matter, so let's let them do exactly that. Let's not compete with them in their frequency arena, shall we, as that will only muddle and muddy things up. Remember, the all-important low-end kingdom is ruled by the bass and drums. End of story. We are mid-range. So in short, having less low end on the guitar when playing in a band so we sit nicely in an uncluttered mix is the way to go. Low mids, high mids and presence will give us all the body and cut we're looking for. More lows won't. They just muddy things up like I've already said. This is why a great full-sounding, low-end heavy bedroom guitar sound invariably never works on stage. And the same exact thing applies to gain too. More gain doesn't necessarily mean heavier. As Spinal Tap once said, there's a fine line between clever and stupid, and too much gain can definitely help you cross said line. I can still remember interviewing that living legend of metal crunch, James Hetfield, some 30 years ago, and him telling me that an aha moment for him was when he learnt that backing off the gain gave him a heavier, clearer sound, and that mids were loud in a good way. Also, modern metal maven Matt Heafy of Trivium was also gone on record as saying that more gain and more lows do not a heavier sound make. I repeat, guitar is not a low-end instrument. That's the job of the bass and drums. Get my point? Other pedals can help you tighten your low end and also shape your all-important mids and highs in order to complement your amp sound include the following. Number 1, a graphic equalizer such as the Boss GE7. This pedal obviously allows me to cut or boost certain frequencies so I can shape my signal prior to it hitting another pedal or my amp. Plus, as an added bonus, I can boost my shaped signal with the slider on the far right as well. Nice. And talking of graphic EQs, Slayer used a 10-band MXR graphic EQ pedal before their Marshall 2203 JCM 800 amps to great sonic effect. The shape they used? A mid-bump frown that peaked around 1K. As Kerry King once quipped to me, you can't have anything that even vaguely resembles a smile in Slayer. Well said, my friend, well said. So let's cut those lows, boost those mids, and give the GE7 a quick spin, shall we? First though, as a reference, here's the amp without the GE7 on. And now, here it is with the GE7 kicked in. for that cut of lows and boost of mids. That wasn't bad, was it? Maybe a little south of Heaven the Slayer's awesome sound, but close enough for a mere mortal like me. Next up, the Wampler Equator. The Wampler Equator is another EQ pedal which, in addition to offering active treble and bass controls, has two semi-parametric mid controls for you to mess with. The first one has a wider frequency range with Q on its boost or cut, while the second one has a much narrower one. This allows you to fine-tune those all-important mids to your tonal heart's content. And talking of the mid controls, those all-important sweet spots, namely 723 Hz for a Tubescreamer type mid boost, 1K for a Klon type bump, and last but by no means least, 2.2K for what the manual aptly refers to as singing mids, are clearly labelled on both controls. Nice one, Mr. Brian Wampler. That's super thoughtful of you and very, very guitarist friendly. And the fact that the bass control can add or subtract up to 19 dBs at 130 Hz means I can lower their low frequencies before distortion has a chance to make them all flubby and useless. First though, once again for reference, here's the St. James with the pedal off. And now here it is with the equator on, with the bass cut a little bit. Mid 1 creating a bump around 1K, mid 2 boosting 2.2K, and treble up a smidgen too. Let's check it out. I enjoyed that. Could you hear what the pedal was doing? It just gave me that cut while rolling off those lows. To be honest with you, I could easily film a whole video just tweaking on this pedal. In fact, maybe I should do one in the near future because the Wampler Equator opens up a lot of cool tonal doors. Thank you, Brian. Next up is this little bad boy here, the MXR Timmy, which Matt Heafy of Trivium turned me on to. Both its bass and treble controls are reduction only, and the fact that the bass control allows you to reduce the lows before clipping while the treble control allows you to reduce the highs post-clipping is really cool. Why is this cool? Well, by having the two controls set up this way, they reduce the low-end flub and smooth the highs respectively. Here's the Timmy stacked with the GE7 in front of it to boost those mids just a smidgen. Next up is this one, this gold beauty, the custom badass MXR modified OD. You heard this one at the start, and I wanted to give it a quick shout out as it has a neat 100 Hz control that allows you to boost or tighten their lows, and it has a bump switch as well. Oh yeah, plus it's a stomp box our pal Fluff from Riffs, Beards and Gear likes to front end his bevy of Messer rectifiers with. Enough said. All of the pedals just mentioned, plus of course the Tubescreamer and SD1, can of course be stacked with other boosts, overdrives and distortion pedals by the way. And talking of pedal stacking, that leads me nicely into amps in a box. But first though, let's quickly change guitars again, shall we? Guitar change done via digital magic. Now let's talk about amps in a box. Now if you're going to go that route into a clean amp, the 2-channel Friedman BE OD Deluxe is a fine option. In addition to sounding like, wait for it, a BE100, this bad boy boasts 2 totally independent channels, each with controls for gain, bass, mid, treble, presence and volume. Plus, even better, each channel has its own 3-way mini toggle tight switch. The middle position of this switch is effectively off, but putting it down cuts some lows, tightening them up, and then the up position is tighter still. Here is what the amp sounds like clean, just so you've got a reference. That said, here's channel 1 of the BE-OD Deluxe with maximum tightness for rhythm, followed by channel 2 with the tight switch in the middle for a smidgen of badly played lead. Here goes. Nice, and now for a smidgen of lead. And talking of amps in the box, let's not forget the excellent heavy pedal from our Canadian pals at Empress Effects. In addition to having 2 channels, a lot of gain, it also has 3 mid-frequency options and an excellent built-in gate. And if that's not enough, it's also got a weight control, which is basically a movable low-pass filter so you can fine-tune the cutoff point up or down to suit both your taste and also your tuning. If you'd like to hear this fine and aptly named pedal run through its paces, there's a link to a video I just did on it recently. Here's a quick teaser. Yep, that definitely worked. Now, another one of my favourites making a clean amp into a metal amp ploys is running a JHS Screamer pedal into a JHS Angry Charlie. This effectively gives me the sound of a hot-rodded Marshall JCM800 being front-ended by a Tubescreamer, with Mr. Scott's strong mod on hand at the mere flick of a switch should I need it. Nice. We already know what the amp sounds like clean, so here it is with the Angry Charlie kicked in. Yep, not bad. Now let's kick the Screamer in with the strong mod switch activated. Yep, consider that box ticked. Now, as I know you know, there's a bunch of other amazing amps in a box out there too, like the EVH5150OD, the Rev G3 and G4, and the Diesel VH4 to mention but 4. And of course you can stack them with the Screamer or any of the other pedals in this video that I've used thus far, such as the Timmy, the SD1, the Equator, and also anything else you can find. Try it, experiment, have fun. But wait! There are a few more things you should take into account when not only working on tightening your low end, but tweaking your tone in general. Now, I realise that some might say what I'm about to tell you is merely stating the obvious, but as my dear dad always liked to say, if you stop stating the obvious, it can stop being obvious. Disclaimer made, here we go. Factor number 1, the inherent tone of your axe. Just like you, each and every axe is totally unique in some way. So what might work for one guitar might not work as well for the next, and vice versa. We're talking about scale length, construction, wood types, bridge type. They all play a sonic role, and a vital sonic role at that. Factor number 2, your pickups. It's often been said by people much smarter than me that one of the easiest and most effective ways to modify your guitar sound is by changing pickups. And it's true, gosh darn it. And, as I know you also know, there are countless active and passive options to choose from out there. A mind-boggling number, in fact. Talk about choice paralysis. Thankfully, though, companies such as DiMarzio and Seymour Duncan let you know how each one of their pickup offerings is different in terms of both output and tone. In fact, Seymour Duncan have a bass, middle, treble EQ bar chart for each pickup on their website. For example, here's the tonal bar chart for the classic JB humbucker. And here's the one for the high output Invader 2. And, in a very similar fashion, the DiMarzio website features a tone guide for each pickup that shows you bass, low mid, high mid, and treble. Here's the well-known Super Distortion humbucker's tone guide. And here's the one for the deactivated that our friend John 5 uses. As you can see from both these charts, both these pickups are pretty different. So, do your research, my friend. Do your research and pick wisely. Factor number 3, your tuning and your string gauges. Both of these will obviously have a tonal bearing. Ditto how long a set of strings has been used due to the fact that older strings invariably sound less bright. Now, some players prefer this, others don't. This is another factor well worth bearing in mind. As for factor 4, this is probably the most darned obvious one of the lot, namely your amp. Duh. Now, from Bogner to Blackstar, Fender to Friedman, Marshall to Messer, and Victory to Vox, each and every amp brand obviously has its own unique tonal DNA. As a result, some amps are tighter than others, some are brighter than others, some are cleaner, some have more gain, some are more scooped, and so on and so forth. Factor number 5, your cabinet and your speakers. Now, a head into a closed-back 4x12 will not sound or feel like an open-back 1x12 or 2x12 combo. Or for that matter, a head into a 2x12 closed-back cabinet like the Marshall Vertical SV212 I'm playing through right now. And also, let's not forget the speakers in said cabinets. For example, a Celestion Vintage 30 certainly does not sound or behave like a greenback speaker and vice versa. Yada, yada, yada. And then last, but certainly not least, arguably the most important factor of them all, factor number 6, you, my friend, you. Obviously, the way you play, the way you pick, and also the way you palm mute all play a vital factor in how you sound. Yep, it's all about your unique playing style and taste. Let's face it, we're all different, and that's a truly wonderful thing in my humble opinion. After all, the guitar world would be a really, really boring, vanilla-flavored place if that wasn't the case. Of course, we all have our heroes in terms of both playing and sound. That said, while the gear they use will definitely give you clues, what works for them might well not work as well for you. In fact, sometimes it might not work at all. Sorry, sad but true. So, it's always worth bearing that in mind. At the end of the day, there's only one guitarist who will sound exactly like you, and that is you. And like I've said, that's a good thing. A really, really good thing. To be honest with you, as opposed to lying, I've really only just scratched the very surface of this subject, but hopefully what I've said has given you some food for thought on your never-ending tone quest. Enjoy the journey, my friend. Enjoy the journey, because it never ends. And once again, that's a great thing. Thank you so very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, nicely please. I'm really, really sensitive. My kids watch this stuff, please, so be nice. Anyway, also subscribe as well. Click here for more videos like this, and please visit sweetwater.com for all your music instrument and pro audio needs. Once again, thanks a lot for watching. Goodbye.